Hey everyone, welcome to my jazz guitar transcription masterclass. And today I'm really excited to talk to you about Jonathan Kreisberg and his solo from Autumn in New York off of his Night Song CD on the Crisscross label. And Jonathan employs a lot of conventional techniques along some ideas of his own to really make a unique, well thought out solo. And some of those ideas come from melodic minor and diminished and whole tone scales, as well as motivic development and metric modulation, alongside some things that are pretty unique to his playing. So let's check out the first 8 measures and dive right in. Jonathan begins his solo on the D7, the last measure of the melody chorus, utilizing the E-flat melodic minor scale for just a D7 altered type of idea. And then over the next 3 measures, he's just playing diatonically over the 2 chord and the 3 chord and the 2 chord over the B flat, the G minor 7 over B flat. He's really just sticking to an F major scale. But in the G minor 7 over B flat, he does play a B flat major 7 arpeggio, which gives him a G minor 9th tonality. And B flat major 7 is a nice substitute for G minor 7. Then when he gets to the A minor 7 and flat 5 in measure 5, he's just back to using diatonic ideas, just this very short phrase. But the phrase that happens in measure 6 is quite unique because it utilizes the C melodic minor scale. And actually what he plays is a C minor major 7th arpeggio, which then introduces the natural 9 on the A minor 7 flat 5, and it's a pretty colorful tone on that chord. He then finishes the phrase on beat 4 with an E flat minor 6th arpeggio. And I think what he's doing there is he's anticipating that D7 that's happening in the next measure and providing a altered dominant idea over that chord. So let's go back and check out and finger some of those phrases. So the first phrase, I'm going to start on my C on the 8th fret, 1st string, and I'm just going to work my way right down the E flat melodic minor scale, landing on the D. And in measure 1, we've got that diatonic playing the C to B flat to A. Now in measure 3, this is that B flat major 7 arpeggio. And I'm going to start that on the 6th string, and I'm going to pick every note. And that lands on the 5th of the C7 on beat 1 of measure 4. And then we've got another little diatonic phrase in measure 5. Now here's that melodic minor phrase. It's going to clearly outline a C minor major 7 arpeggio and then go up to an E flat minor 6 arpeggio. And I'm going to start that again on the 6th string with my pinky on the 8th fret. So he starts the phrase down on the 6th string. We get the C minor major 7 arpeggio. And then here's the E flat minor 6th arpeggio, and then he moves up for just an upper lower resolution into the root on the D7 flat 9. Now let's listen to measures 9 through 14 and hear how Jonathan introduces some motivic development as well as a question and answer phrase and a popular technique called octave displacement that was used by the beboppers. So in measure 9 over the G minor 7, Jonathan plays both a D minor 7 and an A minor 7 arpeggio. And then the harmony moves up a minor 3rd, and he moves his arpeggios up a minor 3rd to an F minor 7 and a C minor 7 arpeggio. And what those arpeggios give us, they give us the 11, the 9, the 7, and the 5 for the D minor 7 arpeggio, and the root, the 13, the 11, and the 9 over the A minor 7 arpeggio. And I'm going to start that phrase, which starts on the 2nd triplet of beat 4, measure 8, with my 1st finger on the 1st string. And then I'm going to move it up a minor 3rd. And what's nice about that is we get some nice colorful tones over those two minor chords, as well as the strength of the motivic development of the phrase. Now the E flat dominant 7 that happens in measure 12, and then the A flat major 7, then back to E flat dominant 7. What I like about this phrase is I hear it sort of as a question and answer kind of phrase. The first time he plays over the E flat dominant 7, he uses the octave displacement, where this technique, our ears perceive a line headed in a certain direction, and we expect it to continue in that direction to its resolution, but instead it pops up to the note of resolution, but it's an octave higher or lower than what we expect. And then when he goes back and plays over the E flat 7 again, he doesn't do the octave displacement that time, so I kind of hear that as a question and answer type of phrase. And the first phrase that he plays over E flat 7 is bebopish in nature. It's got some flat 5s and some flat 9s in it. And then the second time through, he takes it a little bit further outside. So here's the first phrase. This is the phrase that's starting in measure 12 on the and of 2, and it starts on a C. I'm going to start that with my first finger on the 5th fret on the 3rd string. And there's that octave displacement with the E flat heading up the octave for the resolution. Now the second time that he plays the E flat 7, we've got a couple different things going on there. We've got some inside-outside kind of playing. He actually starts the idea with an A flat major 7 arpeggio, and then he moves down to an E major arpeggio, slips into an E augmented arpeggio, and then finally resolves to the root of the chord. And I think what's happening there is he's just using a technique called side slipping, where we might move an idea up or down a half step from the intended target, just to kind of create some suspense and some tension, and then resolve it. So where I start that phrase is on my first finger, 2nd string, 9th fret on the A flat, and it goes down to G, goes up to the 1st string C, bars to get the E flat, and back to the A flat. And that's the A flat major 7 arpeggio right there. Then I'm going to move down into 4th position. And there I'm going to play the E on the 2nd string, 5th fret. And I'll play the B below it and the G sharp below that. Now I'm going to switch up one position to 5th position, and this is where I get the E augmented arpeggio. And then it resolves from the flat 9 down to the root. And this is kind of a tricky phrase, so I'm going to play this kind of slow for you so you can see how it flows. So now let's check out measures 15 through 24. And this is the first time we hear some real classic bebop language, and then right after that he takes the last part of that phrase, the last part of the bebop lick, and he uses some motivic development there, and it's a really nice way of completing the phrase. So let's check that out. So in measure 16, we have a D minor 7 flat 5 going to a G7 flat 9 and then resolving to its intended tonic. And we hear a really classic bebop type influenced idea. It goes straight up the D half diminished arpeggio, goes to the root, and then there's the actual bebop note. That's the note that we add to the major modes to create bebop modes. So he plays right up D minor 7 flat 5, goes down to the 3rd of the G7 and comes up a diminished idea, which gives us a G7 flat 9 sound, down a half step to the root, and now he comes down an augmented triad and lands on the root. And then to get the C minor 7, and now what I like about that last idea is how he uses the major 3rd, the E natural, as an upper neighbor to the lower neighbor 9 to the resolution of the minor 3rd and down to the root. So here's that idea. And he doesn't stop there. This is what's really cool, is he then takes that last part of that phrase and he starts moving it around. He moves it up to the major 7 over the C minor 7 chord and plays in measure 18, and then in measure 19 on the D minor 7 flat 5 he moves it up to the 9 and kind of creates a melodic minor idea over that half diminished harmony. Okay, now the idea that he's presenting in measure 20 over the G7 flat 9, it just starts out as mainly it's a G major arpeggio, but what's cool is he puts a flat 9 in there, so we get a kind of a diminished flavor over that. And he starts that phrase that starts on the and of 3 with his first finger on G on the 15th fret first string, and he immediately plays G and then A flat and up to B natural, and there's the major third, and then he comes right down a G major 7 arpeggio. Now in measure 21 we have a C major 7 chord, and that's the intended resolution of this dominant. And what's nice about it is he plays actually a B major arpeggio. Again, this is that side slipping technique. And then right after that, he's going to resolve it back up a half step and resolve all that tension that's been built up. So he, on beat 1 of 21, he starts with an F sharp on the 14th fret, first string, and plays a B major arpeggio, and immediately goes up and plays a really strong C major arpeggio on beat 2. And then he just continues down the C major 7 arpeggio. So that idea sounds like this. Now, one of my favorite parts of the solo is the way he treats the C7 chord in measures 23 and 24. And what he does is he just treats it as a whole tone chord, and this is really common. This is one of the things I think is like a signature Jonathan Kreisberg concept, is utilizing the whole tone scale over dominant chords. Now, you could take this series of whole tone triads, 1 major third sharp 5, and you could play them just in succession. But for me, in my technique, I couldn't get it to sound as legato as I'd like to. So what I did was I came up with an alternate fingering in my left hand that utilized different finger groupings every single triad. So I felt like I stayed ahead of the phrase. And so I start that first triad, first finger on C on the 3rd fret, 5th string, and I play 1, pinky, and then 3rd finger. And that sets me up for my D augmented arpeggio starting on my 2nd finger. Now the E augmented arpeggio is going to go over 3 strings, and it's going to utilize my 3rd finger, my 2nd finger, and my 1st finger. I'm going to use that same shape, start on my 4th finger, and get the F sharp arpeggio. I'm going to go back to my 1st finger and the shape that looked like my first augmented arpeggio and play the G sharp arpeggio. I'm then going to play the shape that I associated with the 2nd augmented triad over the A sharp or B flat. When I get back to the C augmented triad, I'm sliding back to 5th position and playing it there on the 3rd and 2nd strings. Sets me up for my D augmented arpeggio. I use the same shape, different sets of fingers. And then lastly, I end with the F sharp augmented, and then the top of the phrase, the C sharp, the E, and the D. Let's take a listen now at how that C7 augmented idea sounds. So let's listen to measures 25 through 32 now. And what I want you to listen for is all the beautiful voicings that Jonathan uses. There's a lot of chord ideas here, some coming from the diminished scale, some coming from just moving voicings around. And then he's got some metric modulation and some motivic development with quarter note triplets. So really the end of the previous phrase happens on the downbeat of measure 25. But in beat 3 he plays the guide tones, the 3rd and the 7th of the chord, and then he plays a 8th note triplet on beat 4, starting on the second triplet of the beat. Now the first chord voicing we hear is in measure 26. And what's really cool about that voicing is it's actually a G major triad plus its 11. G, B, D, and C being its 11. And that really gives us a nice A minor 11 sound. And then next he's going to move that shape around. He's going to play another quarter note triplet, C and D. And then measure 27, we hear the same chord voicing, just move down a whole step. An F triad with its 11, B flat. And that gives us a B flat major 7 sound. A the 7th, F the 5th, C the 9th, and B flat the root. And then he's got more quarter note triplets. And then in measure 28, this is cool, where he takes the major triads that come from the diminished scale. Remember, not just only diminished triads and diminished 7th chords come from the diminished scale, but also major triads come from them. And all the major triads, just like the diminished chords, are a minor third part. He plays an F sharp major triad, he plays an A major triad, and he plays a C major triad. And just like how we utilize the diminished scale with dominant 7 flat 9s, he plays the triad and then the flat 9 that's associated with that. And what's cool about that is he's now accenting or grouping the quarter note triplets in 3 groups of 2, not 2 groups of 3. And that moves its way up to the F major 7 in measure 29. And he plays an A minor 7 voicing, which gives us an F major 9 tonality. And he does that twice, still grouping in 2s. And now we've got a cluster G minor voicing. And then we end on an A minor cluster voicing. And cluster just meaning that the notes are really close together. We've got the G, the B, and the D, which is the 7, the 9, and the minor third. And he ends that phrase in measure 32 with just a really conventional D7 sharp 9 chord. And that's voiced D, F sharp, C, and F natural. Let's check out measures 33 through 44 now. And he's just going to continue the same chord type ideas, but he's going to actually develop the quarter note triplet a little bit more. So measure 3 starts out with a C minor harmony. And he's just playing an E flat major 7 chord shape, giving us a C minor 9. But now instead of playing just 2 quarter note triplets, he plays 1 quarter note triplet and 2 quarter note triplet 8th notes, or really just 8th note triplets there that are starting on the middle triplet of beat 4. So we get this sound. Down to D minor 7, and now he's going to do the same thing. And now this is measure 35 for the E flat minor 6. Again, notice the shape. It's that triad plus its 11 again. This time it's a D flat triad with its 11 G flat, giving us a 9, a minor 7, an 11, and a minor third over the E flat minor 6 harmony. We've got a single note A over that F7. And now he's just outlining chords here at this point, playing minor thirds, playing really inside over the A flat. We've got the C flat, the minor third. He plays the 5th to the 7th. Then he plays E flat down to D flat in measures 39 over the G minor 7 flat 5. And then F and resolves to E. And now we've got another melodic idea, just an arpeggio. That takes us all the way up to measure 44. Again, those are pretty conventional ideas. He's not really stretching very much outside the harmony. The F minor 9 chord is very conventional. It's just moving down. The inner voices move down a half step to become E9, and then he repeats it. So now we're coming to the end of solo, but we still got some cool things to check out. Let's listen to measures 44 through 49, and we're going to hear how he approaches the A flat dominant 7, resolving to the D flat, and then repeating those two harmonies again. So the phrase that begins on the and of 2 of measure 43 is introducing a new concept. Classical players call it planing. Jazz players sometimes call it constant structure. And what he's doing is he's taking a D flat major 7 arpeggio and he's going to move it down in major thirds. He's going to play a D flat major 7 arpeggio. He's going to play an A major 7 arpeggio. He's going to play an F major 7 arpeggio, and then he's going to play D flat again. And how he's going to approach that is he's going to approach each one with the natural 5, going to the sharp 5, and then descending through the major 7 arpeggio. So we sort of hear a little bit of both, a little bit of major 7, sharp 5, and regular major 7. He's not worried about the non-harmonic tones that sometimes might be played over a certain harmony. He's just taking a shape and strengthening it by moving it in a constant structure. And the constant structure is the major thirds descending, which incidentally outlines a D flat augmented major 7 arpeggio. So what he's going to do is he's going to start with his second finger on that A flat on the 9th fret 2nd string. And that's the natural 5. He's going to move it up to A natural. There's the sharp 5. And then he's going to come down the D flat major 7 arpeggio. And then he's going to do the same thing with the A major 7 arpeggio. He's going to start with the natural 5, go up to the sharp 5, up to the major 7 G sharp, and down. Move that exact shape down to the 5th fret. And then lastly, the natural 5 to the sharp 5 of the D flat major 7 arpeggio down the octave. So here's that idea. Now, the next time he gets around to the A flat dominant 7, he's really just playing D flat major scales. He's got some chromaticism happening in between the 5th, the A flat, up to the major 7, but then he just ascends through the scale via an arpeggio, actually, and then he descends directly down in scale-like fashion. So he's going to start with that D flat, and again, this is on the and of 2. My pinky's going to be on the 9th fret 6th string, and I'm going to play D flat, F, and then here's the chromaticism. A flat, A natural, B flat, B natural, C. And then he's going to come back down to the A flat. Now he just ornaments the A flat with a G flat and an F, goes up to the D flat, jumps up to the A flat again, and ascends all the way to the F. And now he's just going to come right down the scale. I'm going to shift back into 8th position, and then I'm going to come right down the scale. So here's that phrase. Well, we're coming to the end of the solo now, but Jonathan's still got some great things to check out. So let's listen to measures 49 through the end. So in measure 49, Jonathan utilizes just a B flat major triad as his comping voicing. And he plays that twice, and then he states the melody. Now, the next 5 measures, 51 through 55, all come from A flat major. It's the B flat minor 7, the C7, and the F minor 7, F being relative minor to A flat. And all he's doing there is he's using a quarter note triplet rhythm, and he's harmonizing the A flat major scale in thirds, starting with the B flat and the D flat, and I begin that on the second and third string, and then I'm going to pop up onto the first and second string as the line ascends. And we end with the flat 9 and sharp 9 on that C7 chord. And then he plays two quarter note triplets, C and B flat, that gets us into the next idea, measure 53, where we've got this quarter note triplet grouped in twos now, even more polymetric, over the F minor 7. And we've got our second finger on A flat, our third finger on C, and then we pull off to the G natural. Use our third and fourth fingers to get the A flat and the F and go back up to G. And you're going to play that 3 times. Now, in measure 55, he sort of moves the same idea up to a different point in the scale. First finger's got C and E flat, pinky's getting the B flat and the A flat, and then the third finger gets the C with the A flat. Now, what's cool is at this point, we're expecting a D7 chord. We're coming to the end of the chorus. But he employs a constant structure again and just actually plays an F minor 7. He takes that idea that's in 55 and resolves the solo into the G minor 7 chord at 57. And then at 58, we've just got a little chordal idea, the G, the B, and the C natural on the A minor 7 harmony. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about how can we develop some of the ideas that we have discovered in this solo. So let's take a look at a couple of them. And the first one I want to look at is the first motivic development idea in measure 9 of your PDF over the G minor 7 chord. And that is the D minor 7 and A minor 7 arpeggios. And actually just that idea was a lick by Wes Montgomery, that Wes would play those kinds of ideas all the time over minor 7 chords. But if I think about this a little bit and I want to develop an exercise, something to get my fingers moving that might lead me in a different direction. Well, what's the distance between the first arpeggio and the second arpeggio? It's a fourth. Well, let's think diatonically in the key of F. What's a fourth below A? Well, it's E minor 7 flat 5. And then what's a fourth below E minor 7 flat 5, diatonic to F? It's B flat major 7. So now I've taken that idea and I've expanded a little bit. And I might practice that from all points of the scale. So I'm covering all the 7th chord arpeggios that I might be able to find ideas for new lines because of that. So the next concept I want to look at is the B flat major 7 idea in measure 3 over the G minor 7 chord. And we originally fingered that starting on the 6th string. What I tell my students is find 2 separate fingerings for an idea, and more than likely that's going to get you through all 12 keys. Well, let's take that idea that we originally fingered on the 6th string, and what does it look like starting on the 5th string? So now I've got a working finger for the idea in 2 separate locations. So the next step, I'm going to take it through. I like to practice things in cycle 4. So I'm going to start on all my roots of cycle 4, and I'm going to play that idea. Play it from F, from B flat, from E flat, and so on. And that's going to give me that idea in all 12 keys. The next one that I would do that with is the bebop lick that's in measures 16 and 17. That's just a classic lick. So that D minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, you know, what would that look like if we were to finger that now on the 6th string? And so now I've got a fingering for roots on both the 5th and 6th string, and I can get through all 12 keys and have ideas for any harmonic situation that I might encounter. Well, thanks for stopping by today. I most certainly enjoyed taking you through Jonathan Kreisberg's solo on Autumn in New York, and there's some great ideas in there, and I hope they inspire you to play some new and interesting lines when you're improvising. I do have a PDF of this transcription, and I'm more than happy to email it to you. My email address is tlagana, T-L-A-G-A-N-A, @comcast.net. If you find this of value, I most certainly take donations. There's definitely some expenses involved in creating these videos, but it most certainly is not necessary. I'm happy to email you the PDF regardless, but if you'd like to donate, that would be a great thing too. I'm on all the social media outlets. I have a website, www.tomlagana.net. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the transcription. So if you care to reach out, shoot me an email and I'd be happy to get back to you. And I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks with a new transcription.